Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. We now know the launch date for an XRP spot ETF with a very high level of certainty. That date is November 13th. Now, it actually could be a little bit sooner, and there's a world in which it could be pushed a little bit later, but you'll see why I have a high level of conviction that it's either going to be right on November 13th or maybe a little bit sooner. So we've certainly got the launch window. Like that's been revealed at this point. And I'll explain exactly why we know this. And it's kind of interesting because we had a story, and I shared this on my channel in recent days. There were spot ETFs for HBAR, Solana, and Litecoin that went live without the SEC's explicit approval. And that was just within recent days. And it didn't happen for XRP, though. And I made a video explaining why that was. And it involved a little bit of speculation as to the decision-making process behind that, but we knew that it had to do with the way that the ETFs were actually filed. We do know that for sure. And the HBAR, Solana, and Litecoin ETFs were filed in such a way that the SEC didn't have to give explicit approval. So most of the times when ETFs are filed, they're filed in such a way that it results in a communication between the SEC and the whatever business it is that's filing for the ETF. And it does require approval, but that's it's optional to file it that way. It's just that it's become commonplace, and it's more likely the SEC historically is going to play nice with you if you file it that way. But they didn't do that for these ones, and so even with the government shutdown, those spot ETFs went through for HBAR, Solana, and Litecoin. And so I had a whole video explaining, okay, well, it didn't happen for XRP. Well, now it's going to, because there's been a change, and that's what I'll be highlighting here. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And so, given that the United States government is currently in shutdown mode, and will be for the foreseeable future, it could end at any time, but there's no indication that's going to happen literally imminently. It was not expected that any crypto ETFs would go live. So when we got news of this, it was rather fascinating. And so there's a new story, though. This adds on to what I was just catching up to speed on, in case you missed that story in the beginning part of this video. Here's the add-on to it. This is pretty big. Like, it's going to happen. Like, the spot XRP ETF, it's going to go live. It is almost 100% certainty so far as I'm concerned. So there was this article written by Eleanor Terrett with Crypto in America, former Fox Business News analyst. And this article is titled, "Will XRP be the next crypto ETF to hit Wall Street?" Yeah, XRP is absolutely coming to Wall Street. Spoiler alert here. Canary Capital's XRP spot ETF could be the next crypto fund to hit Wall Street following an amended S1 filed last Friday. And I'll pause to note here, this was filed a week ago. So technically it was publicly available information. She found it. Nobody's known about this for the last week. This change happened, which is actually a big deal if you're an XRP holder. Nobody knew about it. Good. So shout out, credit, kudos to her for finding this. And then she wrote, "The filing, quietly modified on October 24th, removes the delaying amendment that gives the SEC discretion over when the registration becomes effective, clearing the way for a potential November 13th launch, assuming NASDAQ approves the crucial Form 8A to allow it to list." And so that's why I said it's not literally 100% certainty, but we're almost there. And technically, yes, the SEC could block it, especially if they come back from government shutdown mode. That seems highly improbable, though. Obviously, this SEC is pro-crypto. Thank God the administration changed. Whew. Anyway, the move builds on the same legal mechanism Bitwise and Canary used to launch their Solana, Hedera, and Litecoin ETFs this week, leveraging the 20-day statutory waiting period under Section 8A of the Securities Act of 1933, which makes a registration statement effective 20 days after filing, unless the SEC declares it effective sooner. And folks, that's what I was talking about. These firms had an option to file either way with the SEC. And then you wouldn't have communication with the SEC, so that's viewed as a downside, and maybe the SEC wouldn't like it if you want to play nice. Historically, yeah, you'd file in such a way that the SEC has to give it the green light or else it doesn't go. But the other way you can file it is what she cited right here. You file it, and then after 20 days pass, it just automatically goes live. And now, of course, during that period, the SEC can give you the thumbs down and put a stop to it. They can. But without that, it's just automatically going live. And so this was fascinating. And I talked about this in my last video where I was talking about this topic. It was interesting because Canary, the ones that have made this change, which means that XRP is almost certainly going to go live on or by November 13th, they also had... I think at least two. So I think I could be mistaken. Just Google if you want the exact info, because that could be a little off. But Canary had one or two, maybe three of the ETFs that went live this week with HBAR, Litecoin, and Solana. They filed those differently than the XRP one. And so we went through why that might be the case, why it might be treated differently, especially given XRP's legal background, and speculated a bit about that. But XRP unquestionably, this is a fact, XRP was treated differently. XRP was treated differently than HBAR, Solana, and Litecoin in the way that they were filed by every firm. Now, Canary, which again just had those coins go live, they have decided, this is again Friday of last week, we just found out about it as a community though, they have now changed their filing for XRP. They did it a week ago, we just found out, which is why we can have a high level of confidence this is going live on or by November 13th. Anyway, piece continues. SEC Chair Paul Atkins signaled support for the approach, praising a company called MapLight that went public during the shutdown using the auto-effective method. And this is the post from him right here. So he seems to be a fan of this. I mean, he literally wrote, this is October 20th, he said, with yesterday's listing of MapLight, the IPO market is still open for business. Companies are going public during the government shutdown using the method Congress originally intended. So he seems to be, he's the chair of the SEC. This is the guy running the damn thing. He's a huge fan of this method. He says that this is how it was originally intended to be. So do you think, with that being the case, that somebody at the SEC is going to put a stop to this? Technically possible. I'm not counting on it. I'm definitely not counting on it. Anyway, piece continues. Since Tuesday's launches, which broke the Gensler era tradition that all crypto ETFs start trading on the same day, regardless of filing date, other issuers have been rushing to update their S1s to bring products to market while the SEC continues operating on a limited basis during the government shutdown. Fidelity, VanEck, and Canary all updated their Solana ETF registrations this week, removing the delaying amendment and targeting mid-November launches pending exchange approval. And so there you go. Other companies copied Canary. They're like, oh, wait, because look at it, like if you're Fidelity, you're like, wait a minute, so we have this self-imposed delay on our own ETF we want to file, but we want to compete in this realm. Maybe let's change the filing. Yeah, let's do that one. They totally copied them, and they all for it, man. Anyway, November 13th launch for Canary's XRP ETF would give the firm another first mover advantage over other issuers with XRP ETF applications, including Bitwise, Franklin Templeton, 21 Shares, and Grayscale, all of which have yet to update their filings. And then she wraps up the article here by noting the following. The government reopening could affect Canary's targeted launch date. ETF experts say that if the SEC reopens sooner and the filing meets all requirements, the launch could move up. If staff return before the 13th and propose additional comments, it could be delayed. Okay, and that's perfectly fine to note that. So she's not promising anything. She's being a responsible journalist. I'm an opinion guy, so I'm just sharing with you what I think. And of course, I'm always doing my best to state the facts as accurately as possible as I've come to know them. But my speculation is it's going to launch by November 13th, possibly sooner if the SEC reopens. Now, if the SEC doesn't reopen, there's about a 0% chance, because this is not the type of activity that the SEC engages in during shutdown mode. So I wouldn't count on it then. But think about this. It's already been a week since the filing changed. That was, again, October 24th. So 20 days later, yeah, that's November 13th. So it's going to be coming up fast here. And I will also just say, regardless of whether it comes sooner than that or there's an unlikely event and it actually does get delayed, and Eleanor Tarrett's correct, that could happen. I just don't find it probable. But even if that happens, you're still going to get a frickin' spot XRP ETF approved. It's still coming. Maybe there'll be some sort of technicality that slows it down in theory. Okay, I'm not counting on it. But if it happens, you're still going to get the approval. There's no way that XRP is going to be treated differently. That doesn't make any damn sense all up in this bitch. That's my humble opinion. I'm just saying, folks. So, and by the way, this is happening at a time when a lot of market analysts are expecting things are going to turn around. So maybe even if XRP in the market go lower, price dips further, which, as I spoke about in my last video, it's certainly possible. This market cycle is not over by almost all accounts from analysts that I follow. And they've got good hit rates too, good accuracy ratings. So imagine that the market starts to turn around. You get this news. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. This could be absolutely. This could be a catalyst for moving to the upside. And if it's not this, it'll be something else. Like XRP is going to run regardless. I'm just saying, this could be perfect timing for a massive XRP bull run. We'll see. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say. All right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.